Yes. So we are going to discuss ethics and integrity in business communication. And when you talk about ethics and integrity in business communication, there are certain questions I would like us to discuss. For instance, we have May 2014, question 3B, and the question posed this way: assess 5 ways in which ethical issues could be mainstreamed in an enterprise. Assess 5 ethical ways in which ethics could be mainstreamed in an enterprise. I would also like us to look at questions November 2017, question 6B, November 2017, question 6B, November 2016, question 6B. And the question is, summarize 10 ethical best practices in business communication. Summarize 10 ethical best practices in business communication. So, strategies, we are going to answer those questions. Strategies or cultivating ethics. Cultivating ethics in business communication. In business communication. How are we able to achieve ethics in our business communication? One, we start by having a code of ethics. Have a code of ethics that will guide even the employees, on how to behave ethically. That will also guide the employees on how to behave ethically. 2, trainings on ethics. Trainings on ethics. 2, you train employees on what? You train employees on how to behave ethically. You train employees on how to behave ethically. Number 3 is rewards. Reward ethical employees. Reward ethical employees. Punishments to those who violate. Punishments to those who violate code of ethics. To those who violate code of ethics. Punishments to those who violate code of ethics. You punish those who violate code of ethics. And number 5, another way in which you can be able to leading by example is management. Management to lead. Management to lead by example. Management to lead by example. That if you want people to behave ethically, you must yourself start behaving ethically. You must yourself start behaving ethically. And then another way in which we can be able to achieve code of ethics is communication, regular communication on ethical expectations, Have regular communication on ethical expectations. What is expected of you as an employee? So you communicate regularly about ethical communication, ethical expectations, and then establishment of ethics committee, ethics committee that is in the board. We have ethics committee to review ethical performance, and then regular reviews of ethical performance, regular review of ethical performance. So we have regular meetings in which we discuss how we abide by our ethics, Then number 9, another way in which we can be able to institute, strategies of cultivating or even instituting ethics in business communication, having ethical guidelines, having ethical guidelines, and then encourage reporting, violation of code of ethics, that those ones who violate code of ethics, they are supposed to, we encourage people to report. Now, when do we have unethical examples? Explain that there's a question in November 2011. You may not have those past papers, but let me read. 6 unethical practices likely to be found in business communication. 6 unethical practices. So unethical practices in business communication. 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 What constitutes unethical practices in business communication? So we are going to be discussing that. What would constitute these unethical practices when communicating, for instance? For instance, giving false information. Then you can also withholding information. So you decide not to provide information, or provision of incomplete information. That's also unethical. Use of offensive language. Or abusive or demeaning language. That's also very unethical. That's also unethical communication. Then we can also say plagiarism. Plagiarism is also unethical. What is plagiarism? That use of another person's work, that is use of another person's work or ideas without acknowledgement. For instance, when I'm teaching you here, I'm using some people's books. I'm using books of other writers. I'm supposed to acknowledge that I'm using so-and-so's information. Is that okay? So if you don't acknowledge, for instance, when you are doing your research, you're supposed to acknowledge the persons whom you've used their work. If you don't acknowledge, that amounts to plagiarism. Another thing is propaganda. So you propagate information that is misleading. So that is negative communication against negative communication against competitors. Negative communication against competitors. Then at times you can also give deliberate, providing untimely information deliberately. Providing untimely information deliberately. with the intention maybe to, with the intention to mislead. So you know that the information is not timely, and consequently you decide to provide it. So you know that it's not going to help. It's not going to help the users. It's not going to help the users. It's not going to help the users. Consequently, you give it when it is not needed. You provide it when it's not needed. We also look at principles of ethical communication. Principles of ethical communication. Principles of ethical communication. Principles of ethical communication. What are the principles of ethical communication? In other words, we are trying to overcome. What would you make you think, or guidelines to ethical communication? Principles of ethical communication. Another examiner will also use the word guidelines to ethical communication. What will tell you that, what will inform you that this communication is ethical or is not ethical? One, truth. 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 That once you provide information, provide the truth. Provide the truth. Two, respect. Respect others. Communication should be respectful. Communication should be respectful. It's not, note that we are trying to say it should not be offensive. That is not offensive. Not offensive. Not offensive. It should not be demeaning. It should not be demeaning. It should be respectful. Three, it should respect the law. Respect the law. Obeying, so it should obey the law. It should obey the law. It should obey the law. That is not, e.g., not defamatory, not defamatory, not defamatory. It should obey the law. It should obey the law. Number four, you see that we said sometimes we withhold information and then you release it when it's not needed. Is that true? It should be timely. Timely. Information, for it to be useful, should be timely. Should be timely. At times, you provide incomplete information. Is that true? So meaning incomplete information is unethical practice. It should be complete. Complete. Information that is ethical is also complete. It should be complete. Then another guideline is participation. Participation. That is two-way communication. Two-way communication. Or in other words, there should be feedback. So that is on its own, feedback. Feedback, when you seek feedback, that means that you care. It shows care. It shows that you really care. So you really care. You really care. So that's about ethics. So we need to cultivate ethics. What happens is that as a way to cultivate ethics, the examiner, there's a time he tested this question. I want to know which year. That's December 2014. We are told to analyze 5 unethical communication practices likely to be found in the business world. We've already said them. Is that clear? And then we are told to identify 6 benefits which would accrue to an organization from suggestion schemes. Or in other words, when you engage employees in decision making, because you say participation is a form of, it's also one of the principles of ethical communication. And when you have suggestion schemes, when you have suggestion schemes, it's a way of cultivating ethical communication. It's a way of cultivating ethical communication. So let's look at that question. Benefits of participatory decision-making as a form of a benefit of suggestion schemes stroke participation in decision making. In decision making. In decision making. What are the benefits of suggestion schemes or participation in decision making? Why should you engage employees in decision making? Why should you engage employees in decision making? So let's see the benefits. Let's see the benefits. And one of the benefits is improved employees' morale, improved motivation among employees, improved motivation among employees, improved motivation among employees. So it motivates the employees. Then management is able to get ideas. So acceptability of change, high acceptability of change, or reduced resistance. There is reduced resistance. Another benefit of why we need to engage employees in decision making, employees provide useful ideas. Employees provide useful ideas. Employees provide useful ideas and innovations. Employees provide useful ideas and innovations. Another reason why you would also be able to engage employees is to improve customer care, because once employees are engaged, they are the ones who understand the customers. And once they understand the customers, they are able to give information about the customers' concerns to the management. Then improved relations between employees, improved relations between employees and management, improved relations between employees and management. So those are some of the reasons why we encourage employees to use suggestion schemes, or we adopt participatory decision-making in organizations. We adopt participatory decision-making in organizations. We employ decision-making in organizations. There are terms that we are going to look at in terms of I'll add you another principle of ethical communication. Another principle is integrity and honesty. That ensure that your communications are honest. Integrity and honesty is a very important principle of business communication. Is a very important principle of business communication. When issues to do with ethical dilemmas, because an entrepreneur will find himself in ethical dilemmas. Here we are told to discuss under the syllabus, you're supposed to know concepts of ethics and integrity. What is the significance of ethical communication? We can even ask ourselves that question. Before we proceed, let's look at significance of ethical communication. Significance of ethical communication. Significance of ethical communication. Significance of ethical communication. Let's look at that. Significance of ethical communication. Significance of ethical. Why do we need ethical communication? Why do we need to talk the truth? Why do we need to talk the truth? One of the significance of ethical communication, you'll find that if we embrace ethical communication in organization, there is improved or good relations with the customers. Tell the customers the truth. Good relations with customers. 2, compliance. Compliance ensures compliance with rules, ensures compliance with the rules and regulations, and therefore avoiding legal suits, Number 3, when you are able to communicate ethically, there is improved image of the organization, When you communicate ethically, there is improved image. Of the organization. So you will not find yourself with issues to do with your image. There will be no problem to do with your image. Another reason, so because ethics is very important, especially as at now in the age of we are in the age of Facebook, social media sites. There is a necessity for organizations to communicate ethically. There's a need for organizations to be able to communicate ethically. Another benefit that will accrue when we communicate ethically, that is providing the truth, is that there is good relations with stakeholders, good relations with other stakeholders. And who are these stakeholders? E.g., government. We have the government. We have the suppliers. If we don't have money to pay them, we tell them we may not have the money. We have the suppliers. We have the community. Other stakeholders that we manage as an organization. We have the government, we have the suppliers, we have the community, among others. So there is a need for organizations to embrace ethical communication. There is a need for organizations to embrace ethical communication. There's a question that was tested in May 2016, question 6A, and the question tested, define the term ethical dilemmas, because we are supposed to learn about ethical dilemmas in communication. And the question, you are told to define the term ethical dilemmas, and then you are told to highlight 4 guidelines of handling ethical dilemmas. So highlight 4 guidelines in handling ethical dilemmas. So we are told to define the term ethical dilemmas and 4 guidelines of handling ethical dilemmas. So let's define the term ethical dilemmas and how to handle ethical dilemmas. So ethical dilemmas ethical dilemma It is a situation. It is a situation where an individual is making a decision, and is unable to distinguish or to differentiate whether the decision he's making, whether the decision he is making is ethical or unethical. So it is a situation where you are in a process of making a decision and you are unable to know that whether the decision I'm making is ethical or unethical. So that means that you are in dilemma to take that decision or not to take that decision or not to take that decision. So guidelines of handling ethical dilemmas, guidelines of handling ethical dilemmas, guidelines of handling ethical dilemmas. How do we handle ethical dilemmas? So if you don't know, I don't know whether the decision I want to make is ethical or unethical. How do I proceed to handle such a situation as an employee? One, I will consult the code of ethics. Consult the code of ethics. That's one of the ways in which I'll be able to know whether whatever I want to make is ethical or unethical. What else will I do? I'll also consult with my seniors, e.g. supervisors. Consult others, e.g. supervisors, mentors, etc. So as an entrepreneur or as an employee, I'll also try to share my experiences. I will share my experiences with my supervisors. And then I will read articles, and other materials, to enrich my knowledge, about the issue. You will even read internet. You go to the internet and you research about the issue. You research about the issue. You try to read widely. And then you can also consult. So you can consult others, for instance, supervisors, mentors, even colleagues. You can consult your colleagues. There is nothing wrong about it. So those are some of the, so you can also consult your colleagues. You can also consult your pastor. There's nothing wrong with that. You can give him a call and try to talk to him. Then what else would you do if you are faced with an ethical dilemma? You don't know whether what you want to do is right from wrong. You don't know what you want to do is right from wrong. Then, yeah. So which other ways do you do? What else do you do? You don't know what you want to do is right from wrong. That is, you are faced with an ethical dilemma. You can also speak with peers and colleagues from other companies. from other companies. Speak with peers and colleagues. Speak with the peers and colleagues from other companies. From other companies. Try to talk to them and they will help you out. You speak with peers and colleagues from other companies. So they will be able to help you to be able to make a decision. They will be able to help you to make a decision. They will be able, they are very useful in helping you to make a decision. Then the last question we are going to look about ethical dilemmas is examples of ethical dilemmas. Examples of ethical dilemmas that you are examples of ethical dilemmas in communication. In communication. And this is a very simple question. You know what? You are being tested. You are being asked examples of what? You remember we talked about the instances of unethical communications. What constitutes an ethics? So it's not ethical. For instance, withholding information. So I want to withhold information and I'm wondering, if I withhold this information, is it ethical or unethical? Is that true? So you are in a dilemma. So one is, number one, of conducting personal businesses on company's time, conducting company's business during company's time. Two, with the whole dilemma whether to withhold information or not. Dilemma whether to withhold information or not. Number three, dilemma whether to provide timely information for dilemma whether to acknowledge, dilemma whether to acknowledge source of information. Source of information. And you give even the examples that we had discussed earlier. What constitutes an unethical communication? For instance, we said even dilemma whether to provide true information or not. Dilemma whether to provide timely information, to withholding information, communicating with integrity and honesty. Those are some of the ethical dilemmas that an entrepreneur will find himself. Those are some of the dilemmas that an entrepreneur will find himself. So that brings us to the end of the topic, ethics and integrity in business communication. Thank you.